What is happening, spectacular spider friends? Kwing here, co-host of Kwingsletsplays, and today I'm talking to you about my predictions for Spider-Man 3, which hasn't been greenlit yet, but they're talking about the possibility of doing another Spider-Man game, and the seeds have been planted for where they're going to go with the next entry in the series, which would be the fourth Spider-Man game, even though it would be the third, and that's if they don't do another Miles spin-off, or a Venom spin-off, or you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. But before we get to my predictions, this video will contain spoilers for the end of Spider-Man 2, leading into all the possibilities of Spider-Man 3. So if you're excited about that, smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe if you're new. So, spoilers ahead, you've been warned. So, as you guys know, Venom was the big bad of the third Spider-Man game, or rather the symbiotes, and the symbiotes are gone. Well, I mean, unless you beat the game, and, well, symbiotes are still around, which is weird, because remember, there was a big sonic boom that wiped them all out, supposedly. Also, you know, Peter's still using the anti-Venom suit somehow, after the whole, you know, MacGuffin thing that happened. I guess maybe, the MacGuffin thing only deals with bad symbiotes, because, anti-Venom is just fine. Okay, you know, I'm just gonna, either the writer completely forgot about that, or they just don't care, and, you know, the symbiotes that are still in the game, maybe they'll be patched out at a later time, or they're saving that for Carnage DLC, because, I mean, I'm just spitballing it here. I don't think it makes sense to have Carnage show up in the Spider-Man trace, because, I mean, then you would be doing the symbiote, like, thing all over again, like, bring him in for DLC, because you still got symbiotes running around causing, you know, mayhem in New York City, and Carnage loves mayhem. So yeah, if you didn't know, they introduced Carnage as one of the only villain side missions in the game, outside of Mysterio, and he is one of the only real villains that is still around after the game's conclusion, and he was far enough in his little helicopter that the symbiote didn't, you know, disintegrate like all the other ones, except for, you know, the ones running around. I'm sorry, but that bothers me. Maybe it's an OCD thing, but I just, you know, look at this. There they are. Hi. They're still here, and this is after the game is completed, by the way. Even though we, you know, started over with another save file, there they are. So we'll just ignore them and say that they won't be around for the third game, probably. Anyway. Harry's brain is more or less fried, and he is Vegetable Man, because, you know, his dependency of the symbiote. He was in the symbiote rejuvenation tank for 2 to 3 years, and he bonded with the symbiote. So when the symbiote was ripped away from him, it caused him to go into a coma. Now, that doesn't mean that Harry Osborn is dead, but more or less, he's mostly dead. And his father is trying to develop the G serum, which we all know is the Goblin formula, because, you know, Harry's dad is something of a scientist himself. So he's going to put in production the G formula, and rather than test it on his son, he's probably going to use it on himself. And then we are going to have the birth of the Green Goblin. Now, before we get to the Green Goblin, Spider-Man games have arcs, right? The Spider-Man 2 game was about Peter and Miles working together at the beginning. And the second arc was the introduction of the symbiote attaching to Spider-Man, so the Black Suit saga. And then we had the third and final arc, which was Venom and the symbiotes. So for the third Spider-Man game, based on how the second game ends, with Harry being a coma, Norman Osborn slowly descending into madness, Peter being semi-retired, and Miles being the one and only Spider-Man in New York City, even though, you know, Peter is still around. Peter has other priorities, such as probably getting married and having Spider Baby, as well as the Emily and May Foundation that he's starting as a literal garage business. It's a garage startup. See what they did there? So yeah, Peter is going to be very busy the next couple years, and Miles, you know, he's got all these electricity powers. He'll be fine, right? So Norman, who is very distraught over the condition of his son, goes to see an old friend of his, the only friend of his left in the world that he screwed over and completely forgot, hates his guts. So he goes to see Doc Ock in the Raft prison, which, if you're wondering, like wait a second, I thought all the villains are dead. Kraven killed all Peter's villains. No, there are some that of Peter's rogues that are still around, but most of them are what's the word I'm looking for? Redeemed or rehabilitated, such as Mr. Negative, rehabilitated. Tombstone, no longer a bad guy. Actually, he's a small business owner now. You've got Mysterio, who is, kind of gone, and the Lizard, who is no longer the Lizard. He's back to being good old Doc Connors. So, pretty much, that's all the villains that are no longer villains. The rest are dead. Kraven killed Scorpion. He killed Electro, most likely. Shocker, which... that is probably the biggest one that I cannot stand, that Shocker was killed off camera in supposedly a very cool fight between him and Kraven. And we will never get the amazing Daniel Barnes Shocker scene in the cathedral with Spider-Man chasing after Shocker in the symbiote suit. That would have been chef's kiss in the game, and we didn't get it. So most of the Sinister Six, including the Vulture, all dead. Even the Rhino is dead. I was actually sent a picture from a scene that Insomniac cut out of the game because it would have been rated M, where it shows Kraven's throne, and behind his throne are the heads of the Sinister Six members that he killed, which is incredibly dark. But unfortunately, Rhino's head was among the ones that he killed and mounted on his wall. Rhino was, of course, injured very badly at the end of the Miles Morales game, but he did not die. But Kraven is the one who finished him off. So it kind of sucks that most of Peter's rogues are, killed in action. But, I mean, Miles is going to be the one and only Spider-Man for right now, so it would make sense to introduce more Miles-centered villains. Whoever those will be, I don't know, because I'm not really big on Miles Morales Spider-Man. Peter Parker was my Spider-Man growing up, and then One More Day happened, so I stopped reading Spider-Man comics, and I'm a lot happier, because from what I hear, Marvel keeps screwing over Peter Parker and MJ, so I haven't really missed much. So, I'm a lot happier. I get to see a nice, stable relationship with Peter B. Parker in the Spider-Verse movies, and, Mary Jane and Peter in these Insomniac games. They seem to get a happily ever after for now. So Spider-Baby is probably, on board, maybe, hopefully, because, I mean, who doesn't love May Parker, right? So, as I was saying, there aren't many villains left alive anymore, and the ones that are alive are all, rehabilitated, which is great. I mean, that's what prison mental health facilities are supposed to do. They're supposed to help sick people get better. So, that's great. But also it kind of makes it very difficult for a third game to have a lot of villains in it. And that's the problem of what the second game was. There wasn't enough villain side missions at all. Not really interesting ones anyway. Although the Mysterio one was cool. But I did not care for some of the other stuff. I mean, where was Taskmaster? That would have been awesome. To have him test Miles or mess with Miles. Because we saw him in the 2018 Spider-Man game, but we don't see him in Miles' game at all. And with Kraven running around and causing all this chaos, it would have made sense for Taskmaster to be involved. Maybe they're saving him for DLC, but I don't know. Also, the Chameleon who was introduced would be a great side villain that they could either save for Spider-Man 3, or because he has some connection to his deceased brother Kraven, they could utilize him in the second game's DLC, which will probably start coming out in 2024, if we're, really thinking that. Doc Ock definitely is going to play a huge role in Spider-Man 3. I don't think they're going to go the superior Spider-Man route, personally, but I think that they're definitely going to do something with Doc Ock, and just seeing him back in action and kind of working with Norman Osborn again, which they're kind of hinting at in the, quote, final chapter. I think that would be really exciting. Putting past their differences and uniting their hatred against Spider-Man and Peter Parker, which, I mean, when Norman actually figures out who Spider-Man is, the guy's going to be heartbroken because, he said, basically Peter is kind of like a son to him, and to find out that his somewhat surrogate son is the one responsible for putting his flesh and blood in a coma, that's going to cause old Gobby to go bonkers and is going to lead to a lot of crazy moments in the third game. We do not want Green Goblin to be DLC in Spider-Man 2. We need to make that very clear. Not we, because I don't have, like, multiple personalities. I'm not a Rack Knight or anything like that. I'm just saying we as a group of gamers and Spider-Man fans, we do not want Green Goblin as DLC Insomniac. So do not do that. He needs to be the big bad of the third game, just like Venom was the big bad of the second game. And he really was. The symbiotes in Venom was the head honcho, the guy who was changing the course of the story after Kraven was defeated. Or rather, eaten. But that's besides the point. I'm surprised they were able to keep that T rating, by the way, when, you know, Venom had a snack of Kraven. It was kind of like, oh, okay, they went there. But, I mean, they didn't show it. It was implied, and apparently that's fine. As long as there's no gore and you just imply violence, then it's okay to keep the T rating. Even though they really were, you know, tightrope walking that fine edge right there. It's still well done, Insomniac. That was pretty cool. So, where could we go? I think that the first arc of Spider-Man 3 should focus on Dr. Octavius out of prison and screwing with Peter, forcing him to come out of retirement and being too much for Miles Morales to handle. While Miles is a very smart kid, he doesn't have the same intellect as Peter Parker, so Doc Ock's equal would be Peter Parker's Spider-Man. And Peter would have to come out of retirement, which, you know, he's been very busy with the May and Emily Foundation and, you know, little May Parker and stuff like that. So he hasn't really had a lot of time to be Spider-Manning since Miles has that covered. And it would also be cool to show Miles struggle against a hardcore Spider-Man villain such as Doc Ock that forces Spider-Man to come out of retirement to work with Miles once again. Also, I would like to see Silk be a big part of the third Spider-Man game. Not only, you know, adding some female rep into the game, which wouldn't be Gwen Stacy, but it would be Silk. I also would want Miles to be kind of her mentor a little bit, the same way that Peter mentored Miles. I think that would be really cool. And I would want to see a love triangle between Miles and his deaf girlfriend and Cindy, the daughter of his mom's boyfriend. Of course, you would have to break up Cindy Moon's dad from Miles' mom, because it would be too weird if those two kids got together when their parents were dating. It would just be weird. So, unfortunately, Mama Spider won't have a happy ending just yet. Now, for the second arc would deal with Goblin stuff. So Doc Ock would be causing problems in New York, and it would cause Spider-Man to come out of retirement. The second arc would deal with Peter kind of being not used to being Spider-Man as much, and also the Goblin watching Spider-Man. I also think they should bring back Wilson Fisk as a side villain who is kind of orchestrating a lot of other events after getting out of prison, serving his time, only probably serving a 5-year sentence, if you think about it. And having him mess with Norman's industry, which is all kind of messed up after the whole Venom thing happened. You know, the entire Norman Osborn Industries was really wrecked hardcore by Venom. So it would take some time for that to be repaired, even after like a couple years. So Fisk would be back in the game and causing all kinds of shenanigans for Spider-Miles and Peter Parker. So have that be a thing. And also, I would want Fisk to have some type of vendetta against Spider-Man and Miles, especially after learning their identity. Peter for putting Kingpin away in prison, and Miles for disrupting his new empire in Harlem. Because remember, in the 2020 Miles Morales game, Kingpin tried to set up a new empire for himself in Harlem while he was in prison, and Miles, you know, put some webbing in that plan and kicked Kingpin out. So we haven't really seen, you know, what is going to transpire from those events. So it would be great to continue that storyline in Spider-Man 3, as well as be a bigger focus on the villains and the remaining villains in the Spider-Man universe, because a lot of them are dead. or, you know, retired, or, you know, in France, or wherever. So, it would make sense to bring back some of the really big names. Also, maybe you can incorporate Taskmaster being hired by Kingpin to mess with the spiders. That would be interesting. You know, he is a assassin as well as a person for hire, kind of. So it would make sense that Kingpin would do everything in his power to mess with the spiders because he hates them, right? So that would be cool. And the third and final arc would deal with the Green Goblin himself. Now, for the Green Goblin, I do not want them to go the ultimate Spider-Man route. We do not want a big hulking beast monster, Insomniac. We already had that with Venom. You did that with Harry. Do not do that with Norman Osborn. We want Norman Osborn to be the Green Goblin, the Emerald Elf, flying around on a goblin glider, tossing pumpkin bombs at people, having a very cool costume that looks very military, like real-world inspired. We don't want him running around in a spandex suit and tunic because that doesn't really work for the universe that you've been world-building. So having Green Goblin kind of take a page out of William Dafoe would be fantastic, but not an obvious copy of the brilliant Sam Raimi, character. Kind of a mixture between the classic Green Goblin from the comics of the 80s, 90s, and the 70s, as well as, like, Insomniac's own interpretation of the character would be great. You could maybe get away with adding Hobgoblin, in the second arc of the game as kind of like a side mission and leading up to the bigger Green Goblin reveal. The 94 Spider-Man show did just that. They introduced Hobgoblin with Mark Hamill playing the role of Hobgoblin, and then Green Goblin destroyed him and, became the big villain. At least I think that's how they went about it. And you could even have Mark Hamill come back and voice the Hobgoblin for some fan service. I think that a lot of Spider-Man fans would really like that. But just don't have him be a big part of the game for too long, because the focus needs to be on Green Goblin and Norman Osborn's insane, bloodthirsty revenge aspect. Then we come to more of the side missions. One of the biggest things that I didn't like about Spider-Man 2 was the side missions. Now, while they do show Spider-Man and Miles being very heroic, they also added a lot of political correct nonsense into the game. So I don't want to see that in the third game. I'm very thankful that Insomniac included this stuff for, diversity or whatever, and gave players the options to, skip it if they don't want to do it. I personally don't go out of my way to watch things that I don't like, whether it's a movie or a show that's not geared toward me. I'm cool with that stuff existing, but I'm not going to watch it because I don't really care for it. So while I'm upset that I couldn't platinum Spider-Man, that's the approach that I have with Spider-Man 2. I found out there's stuff in the game that I don't want to showcase on my channel. I didn't make a big stink about it on Twitter. I didn't really talk about it in my series at all. I just ignored it, and I'm not going to support it. I'm not going to show it. That's my common sense way of dealing with things. And I think a lot more content creators should have that same approach. If there's something you don't like, you don't have to play it. It's optional. Keep a lot of your fans happy, because at the end of the day, a lot of gamers just really want escapism. They want to play a cool superhero game. And with your second game, technically your third game, you didn't really give people a lot of options to have awesome supervillain or really super heroic missions like saving people from burning buildings, or dealing with bank robberies, or tracking down a missing persons. You were very selective with your side missions, taking people to the hospital, 2 missions helping out firefighters, and the rest was just random crimes or dealing with Harlem stuff for Miles, which was fine, but you kind of left a lot of your Spider-Man fans hanging by not giving us more of that really fun supervillain side mission stuff. So for the third game, it would be great to have someone else take on the role of Shocker, because Shocker is a fun bank robber, and that was a great side mission in the first Spider-Man game. You could also have a new Vulture, like maybe Vulture's daughter, if you're wondering about being inclusive and more female representation, you could make the next Vulture a female. and have her be a really cool side mission, because you're going to need to make new rogues after killing a majority of them. What you did in Spider-Man 2, it wasn't very cool. So, you know, I would, you know, try to correct that. Now, as for how the third game would end and leading into other games, I know a lot of people on social media want Peter Parker to die because they would be a lot happier with Spider-Man being a person of color, and getting rid of the white guy is always on the top list of a lot of these weirdos, you know, agendas. But I would actually plead with Insomniac to take a page out of a comic book where Peter is permanently retired as Spider-Man because of an injury that's inflicted by the Green Goblin. Now, in a story where little May Parker and Mary Jane are Peter's family, there is a nasty fight where Peter is involved with a fight to the death against Norman Osborn, and in the final panel, I believe either Spider-Man's leg or his arm is blown off from a pumpkin bomb, which forces Peter to retire. He doesn't get a cybernetic limb. He permanently retires as Spider-Man and becomes a family man after that. And with Miles already currently Spider-Man, and probably Silk being Spider-Woman, or whatever you're going to do with that character, it would make sense for the final confrontation between Norman and Peter to be this big emotional battle that leads to not only the death of the Green Goblin, which would be a huge tragedy because it's the last father figure for Peter Parker, but also the end of his career as Spider-Man by having him lose the ability to be a superhero. He's not going to run around New York City with a missing arm or leg, because he's not going to be able to be the best Spider-Man he can be anymore. He won't be able to help people as much. He won't be able to fight the bad guys with his handicap. So that's how I would end the third game, is having Peter suffer like this massive tragedy, the death of Spider-Man in a sense that he can't continue to be Spider-Man, but also a relief knowing that New York City is in good hands by Miles Morales as Spider-Man. So that's how I would go about a Spider-Man 3 game. Also, you would sow the seeds of having May take over for her dad if you wanted to do a fast-forward future game and have, you know, May Parker be Spider-Girl. So just to recap, as we wrap up, the third game would deal with Otto Octavius, possibly the Hobgoblin, Taskmaster, Chameleon, Green Goblin, Silk, Spider-Miles, Spider-Man coming out of retirement, a massive epic clash between Norman Osborn and Peter that leaves him without, you know, the ability to be Spider-Man anymore, but not killing him, and the future of the Spider-Man legacy being, you know, carried by both Miles, Silk, and in the future, little May Parker. So, yeah, that's how I would write a third game. I'm curious to know what you guys would want to do for a third game. Let me know in the comment section below. And thanks so much for watching my video. We're going to be doing more with Spider-Man. We're on our second playthrough of the game currently, so we hope you guys will enjoy that. And we have a top 10 that is on the back burner, but it's going to take some time. I don't even know if I could do the top 10 justice the way I did, you know, 5 years ago. I don't really see how that's possible. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys and gals. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And I will see you guys with a exciting Spider-Man video later today. Until then, God bless and happy gaming. Thanks so much for watching.